It's preparing to live stream the meeting. All right, it's live on YouTube.
All righty. Trustee, do you have 3 documents pulled up that you'll need for the meeting as well? I know we've got a couple shuffled around on the agenda.
I should have all of them ready for pulling up here.
Okay. All righty. In that case, I will call this meeting to order on this Sacred Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. And we'll call the order here at 7:04 p.m. I'll now go ahead and get into our roll call. Member David Tate.
Present.
Newly minted member Ian Pitlars.
Present.
Can you signify by saying present, Ian? I'm sorry.
Present.
Sorry here.
Did you?
Oh, there you are. I'm sorry, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit low, the volume.
Ooh, I know how to fix that. Give me a second. You guys
You're
keep
better
talking.
now.
And I, of course, am Secretary Brendan Betts, presiding up until this point, at least, in the meeting, and I am present. Let us please rise and do our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Fourth item on the agenda this evening is the approval of our previous meeting minutes from January 31st of this year, of course, emailed out that same day. Do I have a motion on the floor regarding the minutes?
Mr. Secretary, I move that they be accepted as produced. Seconded.
Do we have? Perfect. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
We have adopted our minutes, folks. Excellent. And now we will move on to our 5th item. As we know, folks, we had a previous board member who has become our trustee, who also is, of course, present this evening. We now have, as he was our previous chair, we now have a vacancy at chair. So at this point, we will move to kind of an ad hoc reorganization. We have 2 offices. Of course, we've got our chair or president as well as our secretary. Let me go ahead and ask if we have any nominations on the floor.
David, you're muted. Hang on. Mr. Secretary, I would like to ask if either of the board members, Mr. Betts and Mr. Pitlars, are interested in running for either of those positions. I'm interested in running for president, yes.
I also would be interested in running for president. I, of course, have served on the board for a number of years. I do feel as though it's been an honor to serve on the board up to this point. I am not running for re-election, but I would see it as an honor to serve as the chair of this board, given the fact that I am the sole elected member, but also the ranking member among a serving member of the board. Again, though, I know that we're in good hands nonetheless. However, I would throw that out there for consumption.
I'd be happy to state my case. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Ian Pitlars. I have been involved in local politics for a little while behind the scenes, making my first go at elected office here. I am the lead data scientist at Purdue University. I lead a small team of data scientists there. I have a bachelor's degree in business from Carnegie Mellon. I have a master's degree in computer science and statistics from Purdue. My daughter, Madeline, is 1 year old as of a couple of days ago. I plan to be here for a very long time. And I got involved because I want to ensure that we are planning for the future. in my community, because I have a strong stake in that future now. I think we are in a position now where with the new trustee and with the fire chief, we will be able to develop a very solid 5-year plan. And I would like whoever is chair to be somebody that is running for re-election so that when we get to the next term, we will be able to see through the end of that 5-year plan with a continuity of leadership. That is my case.
Mr. Secretary, may I ask a question of you and Mr. Pitlars? Is that
Yeah.
appropriate? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looking at both the short-term and the long-term legacy of this board, and I must give credit to the current board members that have really done an admirable job in getting us through this chaotic period since I've been on it, since both of you were on it earlier. What do either one of you see as the priority of this board as we move forward? I'd like to ask Mr. Betts to respond first, please, because of his seniority.
Absolutely. I think that's an excellent question. And I'm really glad you asked, David. One of the first things I think we have to do is obviously reinstate and rebuild trust with the community, in particular our fire department, as well as the stakeholders, the folks who come to our meetings, the folks whose family rest in our cemeteries, the folks who pay the taxes that we distribute. I think rebuilding that trust is the first goal because folks have to believe in their local government. That's right out there for them to touch. Beyond rebuilding that trust, though, I firmly think that we need to look at an extension of services, something that I think we've discussed in private, David, and that previous boards have discussed broadly, but looking at extending services to make sure that there's adequate ambulance service across Tippecanoe County, in particular West Lafayette and Wabash Township. I think that could be a good goal to look at here in the short-term future and build toward that. And then in addition, obviously, there's been talk about over a number of years, an insulin pantry. The trustee's office is charged twice in code, at least to my knowledge, with making sure folks have insulin. Now, that's not to say they can solve an insulin crisis, but I do think that they can build partnerships and kind of take leadership. And obviously now we have a trustee that's willing to at least entertain that notion and see if that there's a viable future there, fiscally speaking, to provide those services to this community. So, kind of in short, I think rebuilding trust with our firefighters, the folks who put their lives on the line, is first and foremost in our community and stakeholders. But beyond that, I think we need to look at adding services and then obviously fiscally sustaining those services in the future. I think we've got the team to do it, but I would like to play my role in it. And beyond this, I did come to township meetings before I was elected, and I would intend to come to township meetings following not being involved in this upcoming cycle. So I look forward to seeing what this board does in years to come, but I'd like to continue playing my role. I think that my experience on the board over a number of years with many, many, many folks will serve me well in that capacity so we can move properly and then also toward our goals.
Mr. Pitlars?
Yeah, so I agree. The first priority has to be rebuilding trust, but I think we do that by having a clear plan. I think the first goal has to be by April to have a 5-year plan in place for both the fire department and the trustee's office. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think Ed and Angel are perfectly capable of doing that. And then there are going to need to be decisions made by this board to enable that growth. We are adding a lot of houses in the area. The recent chaos has set us back probably further than we needed to be on making progress towards being ready for that kind of growth. So we need to have a plan in place for that growth, and it's going to take more than the remainder of this term to get there. So I would like to be in place to help lead the development oversee the development of that plan, and then be here to help make sure that the decisions that need to be made in order to properly implement it are made. And I think doing the job and doing the job well will go a long way towards reestablishing trust with the community.
Thank you. I was getting a little crisis phone call here from a group I'm involved with, involving some of the local police. So if you excuse me just to kind of answer this, I'm going to take some time out. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'll go ahead and second that call for a recess. So let's go ahead and take a quick 5-minute recess here. Thanks, folks.
Okay.
Also, conveniently, this gives me time to catch up on the minutes, but
Thanks, guys. I'm back. Appreciate the short time to resolve this quick issue. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely, David. No problem. We'll call back into our agenda now. I believe you were asking questions, David, of the two proposed folks for the chair of the board. Do you have any further questions?
No, I do, but I don't think they're relevant right now. I think we should move on. A lot of conflict here. I have faith in both candidates, but I think we should call for the vote.
All right, I move that we call for a vote for board president.
Second.
Brendan, you're muted. There you go.
I see the motion in a second. So we have our vote on the board president. Member Ian Pitlars, how do you vote?
I vote for myself.
And then I too will vote for myself. So member David Tate, how do you vote?
Tough call, gentlemen. And I really searched this long and hard, and I'm looking for continuity. I have faith in both of you. I want you to know this. So this is not a personal issue, but more of a legislative long-term effect. I cast my vote for Mr. Pitlars.
Perfect. Ian, congratulations.
Thank
Ian
you.
is our chair. I will now see if we have any notes on the secretary position, which I have served in and would no longer like to serve in this capacity. David, I believe that leaves you. So I'd be happy to email over you the notes if I have them.
I will do what I can. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Sure, you'll do a good job. Okay, let's get right to it then, folks. Update from the fire department is the first item on our agenda. Ed, are you with us?
Hey guys, I'm here. Sorry, I just walked in the door from Indianapolis. So I can
take it
give you
away.
I'll give you kind of a quick update. First and foremost, it's been the busiest few weeks of my life, I think, trying to kind of get things put back together. All of us collectively, just a ton of stuff to do. Time-wise, we're just trying to get kind of some pieces put back together. We're trying to get some stuff done. We've had a lot of work that's been done here in the building the last couple of weeks, from HVAC to plumbing to just things that had not been really kept up on. Not because no one did, but because there just was no means to pay for those things. So money just wasn't being spent. So we've had a whole lot of work done. We've been in the process of trying to replace some equipment that's been broken and been works needed to be done on some of that equipment and things of that nature. So That's consumed a lot of time. We have got the guys up and running. They're doing really, really good. They're all in their 24-hour shifts now. And we've been busy. They've really been helping out quite a bit. The volunteers are doing a really good job of helping supplement, the guys that having somebody else here with them. Some of those folks are still in that process of just taking some time to not be running, with our paid staff being gone for as long as they were. Some of those folks were just inundated. They ran a whole lot, and we're trying to give them as much grace as we can to give them some time away and just give them some time to kind of recollect themselves. Doing it as volunteers takes a lot of time from your family. So it's been really good. Sorry. It's been good to kind of be able to give them that opportunity to take some time. So, but we're moving forward. One big update for you all is we were not able to get the SAFER grant application in. Part of that issue, it was all beyond our control. We tried to get it all squared away. Throughout the time that I was gone, there was some, it's called a DUNS number, a federal number that we're given from the federal government to make us applicable for federal grants. And that number had expired, and we had to update the information. And it's a very lengthy process to get that number updated once it's expired. It expired while I was gone. So we started the process. We just weren't able to get it done in time. And truthfully, I'm not frustrated about it. Of course, we wanted the SAFER grant. We want to get people, but I'm confident that had we got it done in a very shorter period of time, we would have tried to rush a grant application through, and it just wouldn't have been thorough enough. Once when the process reopens, we're going to reapply, but they will look back at past applications. And I'm glad that we didn't try to rush an application through that was just below what we would normally have put in. So, because I don't want to reflect negatively on us when we put an application in. So, that's okay though. It gives us more time to kind of rebuild and get ourselves together and get all of our things moving in the right direction before we bring more people in. And I know that Angel and Amy have been working really, really hard at trying to get all of our insurance stuff squared away and our perf stuff. I mean, I know those are lengthy processes, and the guys have been pretty awesome about giving us grace to get some of that stuff done. Of course, it's a lengthy process, and there's a whole lot of moving parts to all of it. So, but we're getting there. So those things aside, I mean, there's a lot of things that we're just kind of in the process of doing to get caught up on. Run volume wise, I didn't do the normal Jim Lewis report of runs, how many we've had year to date, things like that, because I literally walked in the door just before I turned my stuff on. So I don't have that for you, but we've been busy, very busy actually. But it seems like we're doing good with what we've got. So a lot of stuff going on, a lot of, I heard Ian mention the 5-year plan, things like that. We've got those things in place that we've had before. They've got a lot of updates to be done. But it's honestly just one of those things right now that we're trying to put a whole bunch of Band-Aids over bullet holes right now. We're trying to get stuff put back together that's obviously incredibly important. But since I've come back, my ability to just sit down here at my desk and work on some of those things has been minute. But we're getting to that place to where we're able to do that. And really the last thing I've got is I just walked in, and I think I saw as I was scrolling through here that Representative Campbell's on the call or on the Zoom. They passed Senate Bill 304. A couple of the firefighters were down with me today. We sat down there, we've been down several different days through the process to kind of just watch it play out and see how things are going. And that's a big deal for us. I think, especially given the last year and a half or so, that's a big deal. And I really appreciate Representative Campbell, her support, and Representative Clinker and Senator Alting, all of our local folks. I really, really appreciate their work that they put into it, and the time and effort. And there was a lot of rework. I know there was a lot of setting and going over it and over and trying to fix some wording. And there's a lot of things, of course, they had to take into account that we would never think about, things from a higher level than just Wabash Township. So in spite of what it all may have sounded like at any point, we really, from the fire department side, really appreciate everybody's time and effort digging into it and getting that done. So I'm here. If you guys have any questions, just give me a shout.
Yeah, is our next crack at the SAFER grant approximately a year from now then?
Since COVID has all started, they've been running 2 cycles. So right now they're expected to open another cycle in September. And we're planning to put in for that as well. So there's a SAFER grant that we're planning on putting in for in September when they reopen, and it's called an AFG, Assistance to Firefighters grant. We've got a lot of equipment that we need to replace. All of our radio equipment's going to need to be replaced in the next couple of years. Our radio equipment's all obsolete. They're not even working on them anymore and repairing. So that's going to be a very, very hefty purchase. I mean, we're talking upwards of $300,000 probably to replace all the equipment we have. And that's one of those things that will only be done through a grant to do it that way. So otherwise, we're going to be piecemealing it for the next few years. So, and we can do that if that's what we have to do. But so the AFG grant is another grant processes along with that. And our grant writer's also got some other grants that he wants to put in for us. And that's what we're paying him for. So we're going to let him throw as many grant requests out there as he can put out. So,
Ian, I have a question for Chief Ward, if I may.
Please, yes.
Chief, for those listeners, including myself, could you give a brief, succinct description of 304, please?
Yeah. And essentially, we take the process that we dealt with here over the last year with the previous administration, and there just wasn't a quick solve or quick process to any of it to try to remedy it from.
We lost him.
He dropped entirely. I think he did. Let's give him a moment.
He's
We'll be
back.
There he is.
Well, I imagine that he's having to set up a phone, but
Yeah.
But he did just reconnect.
There you go.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what
right.
I hit, but something. So basically, Senate Bill 304, it just puts other kind of essentially and Representative Campbell may be the best one to explain it, maybe from her perspective, but there wasn't a system in place after having met with our representatives and Senator Alting and legislative attorneys and all that down at the State House. There just wasn't a process in place to get any of us to a place that anything could be done in any sort of timely fashion. Senate Bill 304 just provided us that, or provides townships more of a quicker process, I guess. Essentially, the way the process will work, the way I understand it, is it will go through the township board. They will they will put a resolution in place that will then escalate that process to the county council. That will escalate it to, or maybe the other way around, council, then the commissioners in that process. So, and then it has the ability to go to the circuit court judge to be heard as well for removal of the trustee if the job's not being done. I think the advantage of that bill isn't just that it gives us an expeditious process to make it happen, but it's not there's other those extra levels being put in place kind of takes away, at least from my perspective, takes away the worry that it's going to be a witch hunt. You're going to use this process to run an elected official out or run a trustee out. There's several processes it has to go through and be vetted through, and ultimately ended up, in the circuit court. So we hope that it never comes to that again. We hope that we never have to deal with the same sort of stuff that we dealt with before. And I know we're in good hands right now, but we have to think down the road. And truthfully, that's been part of the process for me since the whole situation occurred with me, was really just trying to find a way to get safeguards put in place that doesn't just protect us, but it protects the township and the constituents in the township from this stuff, and gives a process and puts a very clearly defined process in place. And I know there have been conversation about those processes already being in place. If they're in place or if they're not in place, I can tell you, when you talk with legislative attorneys that at the State House that deal with state law as their job, when they say the process is broken and it's not going to work, kind of has a tendency to take you to a place where you believe that whatever is in place just isn't effective. So I believe that the bill is solid. I believe that, there was many hands in getting it worded in a way that it protects trustees as much as it, is there for a level of accountability. So I think, again, accountability and transparency, I don't see how any of that could ever be hurtful to anyone. Adding a level of accountability to a position that has near zero, I think is only a benefit. So.
Thank you, Chief. Ian, if you would allow me, please, I'd like to ask Representative Campbell if she would like to add anything to Chief Ward's comments.
Means.
Sure. Sorry, my camera is not working. So you can look at my picture. Yes, we did pass House Senate Bill 304 out of the House today. I think there may have been a couple votes against it. I did support the
88
bill.
to 1.
88 to 1. Okay. I saw a couple odds and offs. And so, yes. So Senate Bill 304 is a combination of the bill that Senator Dalton authored. And it also, before it left the Senate, they added language from my bill, House Bill 1157. So it's kind of a combination of the two bills. So basically it sets up in place, like was discussed, that you can pass a resolution starting at the board level, and then it would go to the county commissioners and then go to the county council. And after it passes those three levels, then it will go to the circuit court. It still has to meet the criteria for removal, which you would specify. What was added was last year there was a problem up in Lake County where they had an auditor, I believe, that wasn't showing up for his job for 2 years. So at that point, they had added language saying that you had to show up in person and provide office hours. So that language was added last year. The additional language was some of my language about the requirement that a budget be filed. So that language got added to 304. So those are two additional ways that you can identify issues by the trustee only, and as far as requirement of passing a budget, to then take it to a civil action court, and they would determine if in fact they did not, or they did break these rules and can be removed from office. So it's not perfect. It doesn't completely take away the trustees' ability to fire firefighters and things like that. But we did identify two of the issues, which was that you can't just move away to another, location and work remotely, and that you must file a budget that has been approved by the board. So I think that we're really on a good direction as far as we did close that loophole that makes the requirement that the trustee has to file a budget every year. Trustees were the only elected official budgeting agency that was not required to file a budget, and they could just default to the prior year's budget. So this closes that loophole, and they will be required to pass that budget every year. So I think that we are definitely on a good track. And, I'm already working, as I have talked in the past about working with the Indiana Township Association. They really want to come up with solutions too for township government. I know I got a lot of responses from my survey asking just to remove township government altogether. I think it's really important that we look at townships and what benefits they offer. I definitely see a lot of benefits from our Wabash Township, but if there are ways to address this in Indiana code that better addresses our townships throughout the state, we definitely want to update that government. So happy to answer any questions, and thanks for asking.
Representative Campbell, real quick here, we really, as those of who have served on this board in the past and current, we really appreciate the effort that the legislative body has put into this. Obviously, it was a very painful experience for everybody involved. I haven't read 304 in its entirety. You mentioned filing the yearly budget. My question is, does that include filing the required monthly reports and such issues as paying bills on time and so on, or is that too picayune for this
Yeah,
type of?
unfortunately, that's the only language that was included in the budget. I did have a provision in my budget or my bill that was excluded from this budget or this bill that would have created some additional oversight by the board monthly if that budget isn't filed, so that you're assuring those appropriations. But that's something that we definitely should be looking at. And I know that there's a lot of concerns ever since the Kernan Shepherd report that there's a lot of wasted dollars in state townships. So definitely something that, the townships are really wanting to address these issues themselves too, so that we do it in the best way and for the whole state. So.
Well, thank you for your effort and your work on this.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm really, happy to do what we can. And as I said, I have made a commitment to continue work on township budget. It's an issue that comes up every year since I've been on the ranking member of Government and Regulatory Reform. People definitely want township reform. And that's why this task force has been created. And we definitely want to tackle some more of the issues in township government.
Thank you, Representative. And thanks for joining us today. Ed, before we move on, we had mentioned a 5-year plan. I totally understand being underwater right now. That is obviously going to be the case. Right now, I believe we have some discussion for plans slated for the April meeting, which would be roughly 2 months from now. Is that enough time for you?
It should be enough time to take what I've got and get it modified to something that we can get out there for sure.
Okay, that'll just give us enough time before the end of the year to start figuring out what we need to do to get you what you need. Okay, next item of business is an update from the office of the trustee. Angel, take it away.
Thank you. So first off, I wanted to appreciate Representative Campbell being on the call and also Ed Ward's comments throughout that. So I appreciate you guys talking about that. I did want to say, as far as our board, as our township goes for this particular session, for this meeting, we have a couple of updates. In particular, we are still working on making sure for the March piece that we get you guys information for the mowing contract and all of those other pieces. I know that today, that in the recent days, the fire department also purchased equipment so that going forward we'll be able to take over some of the mowing component of our expenses when it comes to the maintenance of our fire stations, and it will be something that is carried out by the fire department with the equipment that we purchased. This brings us in line with other departments. That's been a fairly standard piece of the puzzle for other departments, is that the firefighters are expected to do the maintenance when it comes, downtime between runs and stuff like that. So that's been another piece that I know that Ed had been working on that he didn't mention in his update, but it's good to know. And long term, it'll save us money. I know that the pieces we bought are going to come out to around $9,000 or so of expenses, but that's just, you're paying more upfront and saving in the long run. The other piece that we have been working on, as Ed mentioned, has been insurance policies. So we're nearly all cut up with insurance policies for the for the future, for going forward. One of those particular pieces that we worked on was making sure that we are starting healthcare insurance for the fire department. And so we recognize, right, we can't, as a township, we don't always have all of the finances available to be competitive on salaries with larger departments like West Lafayette or Lafayette. But we have other avenues through which we can also be competitive when it comes to the benefits that we offer, for example. So in coordination with the fire departments, so the office of the chief and our office, we've worked to get a good plan going forward. So we'll be covering 99% of firefighters' premiums, as well as 80% of their family members' premiums. And we'll be paying 99% of them and their family members' premiums for health and vision as well. Sorry, vision and dental. And so those are really exciting news from our part. I know that that's a part of the commitment that we made as a board. Brendan, myself, Michelle have been back in the day. We're really pushing for making sure that we have really good benefit package for the firefighters. At that time, we were able to get 80% coverage. As we move forward, we're getting to a place where we can cover almost all of the benefits that they receive and the firefighters, and that's an important piece because they're making a commitment to serve our community, and that also is reflected when it comes to medical expenses and other stuff. It's a dangerous profession, so it's one of those benefits that the township can offer. It's in accordance with our community's values, and it's really something that we've been pushing through our roles as elected officials. And I know that the department is happy to see that moving in that direction. In addition to that, we are essentially all caught up with the past pieces. As we mentioned to you guys, we haven't been able to run the January one yet because we were getting everything caught up for the annual report here. So we'll get you guys the balances as of January, and we'll send those out to you in the coming days, much in advance of the next meeting. And then for the March meeting, you'll have the January and February numbers for all of that. So we'll be working on getting you those. I think that covers almost everything from our end. We've assisted, as we said earlier, we've already had a township applicant come through. We've been working, Amy has been doing a lot of the legwork on township applications, our clerk, and so that's a huge piece. So we're here to serve our community, and we're going to continue doing that, and we're hoping to make a push when it comes to insulin and stuff like that, because as Brendan mentioned, it's mentioned twice on code, and so it's one of those statutes that rarely gets used, and so we want to be able to figure out if there's a way that we can do so in a financially sound way, and maybe create a program that benefits a lot more people. So we're still working on what those are, but stay tuned.
How long have you been on the job so far on now?
About a month.
Look at that. Improving benefits for firefighters within a month. That's pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. If you need anything on the budget end for making that happen, you just let us know, and we'll work.
We'll do. Yeah. Oh, and I guess I'll add there, so we'll have to later on during the year do some shifts between line items just to make sure that at the end of the year they add up. But as we've sent you guys information, then it will be able to be moved from the money that goes for Social Security, FICA purposes, as well as the savings that we're going to have from or the balance that we're going to have from firefighters having started in January 24th. Those will be able to meet the difference between what we had allocated for healthcare purposes. So we'll work on that further down the line to make sure that at the end of the year the line items match our expenses. So
excellent. We'll be happy to work with you on that. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to get through before we dive into the annual financial report?
I don't think so. I think we're all good.
Okay. Trustee, this is one of our yearly necessary items, getting the annual financial report approved and submitted to the SBOA. I believe you have some documents to show us, and we can go through it.
Yeah, let me pull this up here and start sharing it. I do apologize that the way that it lays it out is on landscape mode for the official annual financial report, which is just slightly annoying because it doesn't actually meet the, it doesn't match the layout for everything else, but that's okay. That's just what it is. Let me get you this here.
You got auto muted.
I was going to say this earlier when it happened to Brendan, but it has to happen at least once a meeting. So I guess at least twice a meeting. So this is the annual report that our office submitted, things including with the help of Bill Jones, who's being our financial advisor, and for which we will have a resolution later down the line. Meaning in this meeting finally. So this annual report covers the fiscal year 2021. So it encompasses January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. And so it covers the entire last year of Ms. Tysing's administration. So this first piece here that you see is a cash and investments combined statements. Let me see if I can increase so that it's a little bit easier to read for folks that are viewing it through Zoom. This is also posted on the board's website or the township's website. So if you go to our current meeting tab, you'll be able to see that. So on our wabashboard.com has this information, as it's also on Gateway, visible for the public. So this is the cash and investments combined statement balances at the end of a year. So you have the beginning of the year, the receipts, the disbursements, and so we ended up with a grand total of $1,824,000. And then that includes the emergency loan, which went away because we made the last payment early in my time in office. So we made the last payment to finish out our responsibility when it came to that loan. It also means that following the transfer from the emergency loan and the $500,000 transfer that the previous composition of the board had authorized in June, we ended up the year with $914,000 for the firefighting 1111 fund. Part of that is what is being used to meet the balance between the maximum levy for this year and the additional appropriation that we passed here in January to meet the needs of our department for this year. So additionally, other than that, you can also see our general fund ended up with $149,000 roughly, rainy day at $33,000. And then you also have fire equipment debt, which is just the piece that has to do with our fire equipment that we replenish every certain number of years. That ended up at $23,000. We also ended up the cumulative fire with $440,000 after the disbursements for that one-time transfer of funds. And then we have here the detailed receipts piece. Now, as far as the detailed receipts, this is the one area where we know that we have, this is the receipt. So we'll get to the disbursements. That's what I meant. So these are the receipts by fund and by category. So you have, for example, the excise tax, how much we got there. You have the general property taxes, which is the tax levy that the township sets. It has to be under the maximum levy, and that's part of what we do through every budget process. And then this is what we receive from the state once those taxes are collected. And so you have all of the receipts listed here by category, by fund. And then you have the disbursements by fund, and this is where my caveat from early was actually supposed to be. So this disbursement by fund, it has the disbursements for all of 2021, and then it is divided up by line items. So you have, for example, salaries and wages, how much came out for a general fund, for other personal services, employee benefits, and by different categories. And so we went through, and unfortunately, when we came into office, there were some issues with where some of the expenses have come from. So as part of the work preparing up to these annual financial report, Bill and my office had to work to make sure that we put everything in the right category. So we have all of those particular pieces, trying to put them in the right place, making sure that money came out of the right fund. The one piece that we didn't do fixing everything was the emergency medical and fire. We know that the money should have been put in the 1111 firefighting fund at the time that the township received the loan. That wasn't done on time, so we made a lot of payments out of the fire loan when it should have been moved to the firefighting fund and then paid out of firefighting fund. And so we made sure to the remaining balance move it over, but we weren't able to fix everything on that particular place and make sure that the payments came out of the right fund in the first place. So you can only go back so much in time to fix it. So we weren't able to do that, but the final numbers are accurate and reflect where it should have been at the end of the year, minus the payment that was still missing that we made in early January. And so we have the firefighting fund as well, all of the expenses and disbursements by category, and you see that listed there. So you have $204,000 coming from there. You have fire equipment debt, which is the $112,000. And just to make a note here very specifically, so in the cumulative fire, we have a total capital outlays of $3,000, and then noted here is the total transfer of $500,000, which the board authorized at June meeting, which was a one-time mechanism allowed by state law. And so that's noted here on this section. It's also noted in a couple other sections too. And so total disbursements for the entire unit was $1,500,000. You also have here the township disbursements by vendor. And so you have it here out of rainy day fund, for example, you have the $937. You have an additional expense out of at the Apple store in Indianapolis for equipment that the prior trustee made. You also have payments for personnel listed here. And you have all the different expenses listed by category, by vendor, sorry. And you can see that for the general fund as well as the township assistance. Township assistance, our township provided $250 of township assistance last year, which we'll cover a little bit more on the TA7. And here we have the expenses for the firefighting fund, the 1111 fund. And so these are listed by vendor again. And so we had a total supplies expenditures of just under $34,000. We also had, for example, total services and charges, $99,000. And so the total firefighting was $204 after you go through the specific categories, including employment purposes. Fire equipment debt, we paid part of the debt service that we have to do every year. We did $112,000 on the fire equipment debt, and then we have the capital outlays for Cume Fire as well as a transfer of funds listed here. And so this number matches the one that was in the previous section by category. We don't have any deficit funds. And these are the transfers, which is the ones that we noted earlier. So the transfer out was the $333,756.60. That's for the emergency fire loan, which should have been transferred at the time of receipt to the firefighting fund, but with our office, with the help of Bill Jones, was able to move into the right place. And then it's also noted that we had the transfer of $500,000, which the board authorized in June. And so those are all the transfers out, and then the transfer in, they all went into the firefighting fund, as I previously mentioned. And so this explains what they were, which is what I've already discussed here. So it was a one-time transfer prior to October, so you had to do it by September. And so the resolution wasn't processed in time, but we were able to make sure that was corrected through SBOA. We also had the emergency loan proceeds, which were through the 1782 notice. It was designated to be a place in the firefighting fund, so that has been done accordingly. Now this is the TA7. So the TA7 is the Township Assistance Statistical Report. And so this basically goes through and outlines the number of requests that the township received for assistance in a given year, how many recipients there were, the number of households containing recipients of township assistance, etc. It also provides and then it breaks it down by utility assistance, by you have housing assistance, food assistance, and those are as well as healthcare and burials and emergency shelters and a couple other areas there too. As far as our township, so last year we received 20 requests for township assistance. We helped a total of 5 individuals in 1 household, and that came out to a total of $250. We did not receive any requests for utility assistance, and we did not provide any utility assistance. We received 5. We had 5 people that are receiving housing assistance, and so that's from the 1 household, the one household that received township assistance last year. There weren't many records, so we couldn't accurately count whether there were any non-township source assistance provided. That would be if the township were to refer somebody to a different source, say in our case, LUM, for example, for housing or rent assistance. Then those referrals and the amount that we were able to help folks out with, which is an estimate, generally speaking, that would be stuff that we would also report there. So, because townships can be a hub for providing assistance for folks outside of our own resources that we have allocated by, through the budget process. So there's really not a lot to look at here, other than there were 3 hours of township assistance investigator work done, and then that came out to about $90. Lastly, we have the pension fund. So here listed for the last time, as Brendan mentioned to me earlier today, is that we don't have a 1977 fund for our township. That will be changing soon. So that will be a nice change of pace when we do the annual financial report next year. And so this is the type of, this is more information regarding the pension plan specifically here. And that's the end of the report. But if there are any questions from the board, I would be happy to hear if you guys have any questions or any comments or anything of the sort.
Well done, Mr. Trustee. That's an outstanding effort on your part with the amount of limited information you had from the past several months, and also for Mr. Jones. That's been a tremendous help to the residents of this unincorporated area. Great job.
I completely agree, and thank Bill for his help with this. We'll get to him in a moment here. It looks like you guys were able to reconcile everything in a fairly short period of time. Is there anything that you have concern with? Because like we said, you've been on the job for a month. This is very quick to try to pull all this together. So is there anything that we need to be concerned about, or do you feel you've accurately combed through the prior administration and gotten everything lined up?
So I think Bill categorized it as doing about 90% of a trustee's job for 6 months in a month, and I think that's been basically what he's mostly had to do as he's helped us through this. I want to be very clear and specific that it's a learning curve for this job, and so we wouldn't have been able to do it as effectively if we didn't have, or as quickly as we have been able to, without the help of Bill, who has a lot more experience with this particular area of townships. So first off, I'm really appreciative for that. As far as concerns that we have, so when we came in, as we stated in one of our previous meetings, the first 6 months of the year weren't reconciled. The second 6 months of the year, so that would be July through December, wasn't reconciled. After Mr. Jones was able to finish the reconciliation process, we noticed that January through June were not properly reconciled. Now we were able to go through and everything else looks good, and even for those periods we are confident that stuff is in the right fund. Now the concern that we have is, in the process of doing this in a relatively short period of time, we can't be certain that everything was done correctly, right? We're having to rebuild a year of a previous administration, and so if my particular concern, which I have listed on the resolution that I drafted, which is 2021-11. So I'll share this for a second just to let people know what, oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. I clicked on the wrong resolution. 2021-10, forgive me. 2022-10. God, the year just flies by.
Oh, you got auto muted again. Third time's the charm.
Third time's the charm. So this is the one where we have concerns, is the detailed disbursement for all funds.
Okay.
So that's a piece that that we are concerned about. And so we have gone through the process of, and obviously there will be more time for questions if there are some, but just to clarify what that would mean, it would essentially be a note to SBOA in the long run that we had some concerns here. But so we would just fill out the annual report and say that it has been approved except for whatever piece you guys didn't approve of as a board. And so in time when there is an audit of the township, which there are audits every certain number of years, or when particular situations arise that lead to the SBOA deciding to audit, it would be something that's noted from the board's perspective. Now, I would say that that's probably the wisest decision, just to put this particular piece there. But it doesn't impact our ability going forward. We're confident where the end of year numbers are, that's where they should have been. And so going forward, those will be the numbers that we use when it comes to how much balance we have, DLGF, additional appropriations, all of those different pieces. The end of year numbers would be what we're going to use going forward. So it's a closing a chapter and finishing a book and starting a new one. So this is the last piece of it.
So essentially we feel like we have our hands around the top line numbers. We feel like those are accurate. There may be some line items that were difficult to track, and so they might not be perfect, but the high level stuff that matters the most is where it needs to be.
Yeah, that would be our office's view. Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, would you want me to read resolution number 2022-10?
Please.
And call for the vote?
Yes.
Resolution number 2022-10, Wabash Township, Tippecanoe County, Indiana. Resolution approving Wabash Township 2021 annual financial report. The Township Board of Wabash Township, Tippecanoe County, Indiana, met at a duly called and authorized meeting of the board on the date set forth below. Such meeting being duly called pursuant to a notice stating the time, place, and purpose of the meeting received by all board members. And the following resolutions were made, seconded, and adopted by those present at the meeting. Whereas the Wabash Township trustees submitted the annual financial report. Whereas the Wabash Township Board has reviewed the annual financial report. Now therefore be it resolved, the Wabash Township Board, that the annual financial report is approved with the exception of the detailed disbursement for all funds. Be it further resolved by the Wabash Township Board that this will be noted on option 2 of the annual financial report certification. This resolution was adopted on the 22nd day of February 2022. Mr. Chair, how do you vote on resolution number 2022-10?
Aye.
Thank you. Member Brendan Betts, how do you vote on resolution number 2022-10?
I'll vote in the affirmative.
David Tate, Secretary, votes in the affirmative. Thank you. The vote passes.
Excellent. All right. That is our first issue of business. Congratulations, Angel. You got through the financial report in a very limited amount of time. It is not an easy task. And so in related news, moving on to old business and resolution 2022-4, resolution authorizing the signing of the contract with Bill Jones as financial consultant. We should pay this man for his hard work. So I am going to move that we, this has come up a few times, so I think I can just move to go to a vote on resolution 2022-4 now that we have a number attached to it. Mr. Secretary, would you mind reading out the resolution and we can call for a vote?
Certainly. Resolution number 2022-4, resolution authorizing the signing of a contract with Bill Jones as a financial consultant. I will read the whereas part. Whereas Tippecanoe Township trustee Bill Jones has worked over 2 decades with township finances. Whereas the Wabash Township Board is committed to working with the township trustee to ensure Wabash Township's financial well-being. Whereas Bill Jones has been working with the township trustee's office to ensure we are up to standard for our 2021 finances. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Wabash Township Board that the township trustee is authorized to enter into a $5,300 contract with Bill Jones to provide financial consulting services during 2022. Be it further resolved by the Wabash Township Board that $22,800 of that sum is for expenses year to date, and the remaining $2,500 will cover services for the remainder of year 2022. This resolution was adopted on the 22nd day of February 2022. Mr. Chair, how do you vote on this resolution 2022-4?
Vote in the affirmative.
Thank you. Member Brendan Betts, how do you vote on resolution number 2022-4?
I vote in the affirmative.
Thank you. Member David Tate votes in the affirmative well. Mr. Chair, resolution number 2022-4 has passed.
Excellent. And thank you, Bill Jones. I know you're on the call. This has been a Herculean effort to get this across the finish line. Thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you for the remainder of the year. Moving on to new business. We have a resolution for the board to authorize the trustee to enter into a contract for an in.gov Google Workspace. Angel, is there any preamble you'd like to give to this resolution before we call for a vote? And you are muted.
Yes, I realized I was muted right before I started talking. I was like, oh yeah, I should do that. So this resolution, so a quick overview. So the township obviously has the board website that has been used in recent years. We've also had, trustee has purchased in the past a website through their own office as well. And so this would be we're starting the one part that is free is we can get a domain set up through the Indiana Office of Technology to have an in.gov domain, which would be our official domain for the township. So unfortunately, because there are multiple townships named Wabash Township, we weren't able to just get wabashtownship.in.gov, and I am still a little bit sad about that, but that's okay. I understand that even though the other Wabash Townships are a lot smaller, they still deserve access to the domain, and we can't just steal their name and just say it's ours. So, so we have the 79 at the end of it because it designates our county number. So that's county number 79, and that's the most succinct version of this naming convention that would have made sense for us. So we selected that piece, and then the part that this resolution concerns specifically is, on top of that, we can work to professionalize our township communications and all of these pieces by having one unified workspace. Now, the two options going into this were Google Workspace that we were looking at, or using Outlook. The one that IoT offers is through Google Workspace. And so this has a couple of advantages. For one, it's a domain that, a workspace that at the end of the day is administered through us, but they also have access to and can change between one administration and the next if there happen to be any issues. Now, we don't foresee that happening, but that's an advantage to doing it through a state agency. But more importantly to us too, it's also that we're able to attain a good level of service at a reduced cost. So whereas usually we would be paying about $12 per user per month for the standard plan, they have a contract negotiated where we would be able to get it at $10.50, and it would really professionalize our services, and it makes it a lot easier for public requests for information. We have easier to share documentation between different entities in the township, be it on the elected official side as the board or the trustee, as well as our office and the fire department. So it's just a foundation as we move forward and do work over the coming years. It allows us to be more productive and efficient, and not just be winging every aspect of our technology going forward as we have done in the past. And so this would essentially be a 36-month agreement because it would lock in the current price. So we'd be able to just be able to go through and have this price for the coming years. So,
Mr. Chair, Trustee Valentin has presented Resolution 2022-11. With your approval, I will read Resolution 2022-11 and call for a vote. With your approval, sir?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Resolution number 22-11, resolution authorizing the trustee to enter into a contract with Carasoft for Indiana.gov Google Workspace. Whereas Wabash Township is seeking to professionalize the communications of our government unit. Whereas the Indiana Office of Technology, IoT, administers in.gov domains for the state of Indiana. Whereas the township has acquired Wabash Township 79.in.gov as a domain through IoT. Whereas IoT offers a Google Workspace service through a contract with Carasoft. Whereas Carasoft negotiated cost per user per month in the enterprise standard plan is $10.50. Whereas the township can establish a 36-month agreement that locks in the current price. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Wabash Township Board that the township trustee is authorized to enter into a 36-month contract with Carasoft for Google Workspace services for township employees, fire department leadership, and elected officials. This resolution was adopted on the 22nd day of February 2022. Chair Pitlars, how do you vote on Resolution 2022-11?
I vote in the affirmative.
Thank you. Member Brendan Betts, how do you vote on Resolution 2022-11?
Vote in the affirmative.
Member David Tate votes in the affirmative. Mr. Chair, Resolution 2022-11 has been passed and adopted. Thank you.
Excellent. Much needed professionalization. I look forward to it. And again, it's been a month. That's a lot in a month. Killing it. All right. So the last order of business that we want to get to is future meeting dates. They are set for March 15th at 7 p.m. And at April 19th at 7 p.m. as well. Are those still good with everybody on the board and the trustee?
Yeah, and I'll just add a comment there. So for the 15th, we should be really focused on the pieces for mowing, especially as we approach spring, so that we have all of that ready. And so part of that is also working with niches to make sure that we have an agreement for hills thistle conservation. We've done it for the past 2 years. We'll be working on that, and that'll be a piece there that we'll have resolutions for your consideration. And then the April 19th meeting is our target date for both the firefighting short and medium term plans, so 2, 3, 5 years. And then the 1977 fund, we authorized it last year. It didn't go into effect given the events that transpired, but we're looking to make sure that we can adopt it with the correct information for this year and be able to have a retirement plan for the firefighters as we've all stated is a part of what we'd like to get done. So,
yeah. Mr. Trustee, may I make a comment? I've talked to Nisha's. The contract that they presented previously was under a old executive director, and they're meeting tonight, and they will look at a new contract that will pass by the board and the new executive director. Hopefully by the time that we can meet, they're going to look at that and submit it with new approval. So we've talked about that, and hopefully we'll have that ready for your presentation. Thank you.
Ed, I see you have your hand up. Is there anything you'd like to say before we move on to announcements?
There is. I'm sorry, I forgot a couple things that I wanted to mention real quick.
That's okay.
The first thing is we had discussed one point about part-time employees. My goal is this upcoming week, I've got several folks that we're going to be talking to over the next week or so, and we'd like to get them started pretty quickly to start getting them trained. We intentionally kind of waited to get our full-time staff back to work and get their feet underneath them before they started trying to train other people. But our goal is really to try to bring on some of our current volunteer staff to be able to work as part-time. That will help reduce some of that training time. And I think it's a good way to start transitioning some of those folks when we have full-time positions open. If we have folks that are already affiliated with us, the ability to bring them on full-time is a tremendous opportunity. So that will be happening over the next week or so. We'll start through that process, just so you guys are aware of that. And lastly, I just wanted to when we were discussing the Google Workspace and kind of streamlining communication a little bit, Angel and I talked about it a bit. I think that it might be, I just want to make sure everyone's clear, and I guess the most simplistic way to do business moving forward. I just like with the 5-year plan and things of that nature, I will run all of that through the trustee's office. So as you guys are needing those things, it would be best maybe to coordinate directly with the trustee, and he will connect with me because there's a lot of those things that he and I will communicate about often. And as you guys have ideas on things and all that, you're welcome to shoot me emails. I would suggest if you're going to do that, you copy the trustee on those things because there's so much going on that if it's something that's not a huge priority right away, I don't want to lose it in the shuffle. I don't want it to be something that I don't get back with you on. And there's just a lot of those things that the trustee and I have talked about and a lot of things moving forward that we are hoping to do. So I just want to make sure that there's not things getting dropped and there's not things kind of getting lost in the shuffle. Everything's incredibly important. It's just, the priority list just keeps shuffling around. So it would just be most simplistic for me that if there's anything significant that you guys need from me, that you run it through the trustee's office and we kind of coordinate that way if that's good with everyone.
That's totally fine. It is another step towards the professionalization of the office that I think has been sorely needed, and I think we've got a great team in place to move forward with doing that.
Lots of Trello workboards going on as we shuffle things around.
Yep. All right. Do any members of the board, the trustee, the chief, anybody have any additional announcements that they want to make before we adjourn?
I think that the chief has one regarding the in the spring they're going to be having an open house. So I think that and as well the pancake breakfast, he might be able to speak to that too.
Well, I can talk about the open house. I'm not going to dig deep into the pancake breakfast because that's our association and their fundraising group that and I guess that's actually something that's probably good to discuss here while we're here, just to kind of a big part of all of this moving forward stuff is us trying to reorganize a bit in a way that's most conducive for not just our attorney, but also our insurance agent. There's got to be some clarification on the difference in the fire department and the fire association. And we have to make sure we're delineating well between those things. So from this point forward, anything like that, with the pancake breakfast, anything like that association wise, I will just ask somebody from the association to be on the meeting and give those announcements and those things to where we're not continuing to blur those lines when we're trying to clarify what those differences are. So, but as far as open house goes, that's been a big goal for us is once we get ourselves put together, our goal is to do an open house to just kind of invite the public in once the weather's nice, we get the doors open to the firehouse, get trucks out, things like that. And we'll be working to kind of get that established and set up just to kind of meet people, let people come in and see what it is we do. Over the last year and a half, people have heard a lot about us. So it's better to give them the opportunity to meet us and shake our hands and see what we do and just introduce ourselves to folks. And the other half of that is, before that occurs, at some point, we'll be doing a swearing in ceremony with our firefighters. So Trustee and I have talked about that a bit. We're going to try to get that coordinated. It's something that was supposed to have been done when we hired the guys back in August, the paid staff, the new Travis and Drew, and it just kept being something that kept getting put off. So I think it's incredibly important that we do that. We'll end up doing it with all of with all of the paid staff. We'll doing a swearing in ceremony for them and make it, again, that professionalism, trying to professionalize what we do. And so those are big things that we will end up doing. And I think that it doesn't just say a lot for us. I think it says a lot for the community too, to see that we're doing things different. So as far as pancake breakfast, it's coming up. I do know, and I think Amy might be on here, and she actually helps with our fundraising stuff. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. But if she is, she may be able to give some more information. I kind of left that to them. So
I do not see Amy on the call, but when we get more details, I'm sure we can make.
And I did forget that David's also worked on that, so he can also talk to you about the pancake breakfast too.
Okay. I'm sure we can do some advertising as we get closer to it. And if it comes after the March 15th meeting, obviously we can give details then.
And there will be a blood drive in April, but we'd already talked about that previously. So just if you're not like me and you're not afraid of needles and you are okay giving blood and you don't feel like you're going to faint, you should come donate blood in April because we'll have the second round of blood donations. And if you are like me, maybe man up and show up.
Yes, and we can, and we'll remind folks of that next month as well. Okay, if there's nothing further, I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
A motion has been made to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Member Betts. As of 8:20 p.m., Tuesday, February 22nd, this meeting of the Wabash Township Board and the annual report by the trustee is now over. Thank you for attending.
All right, it's been a pleasure, everybody. I look forward to it. See you next.